Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 127 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It is January 31st, 2018. I hope you're excited. I hope you're ready to dive into some Firefox hacking today, because that's what we're going to be doing. I'm glad you're with me. Let's do this. Here's my screen. Here's the agenda. So, it is January 31st, 2018, as I said. A reminder that no plan survives breakfast. Anything could happen, like someone could ping me about something in IRC, and I need to maybe do a thing. Hopefully not. Hang on, let me just quickly respond to this because it sounds like it's a little time pressing. This is the exact sort of thing where plan was not going according to plan. Just give me 1 second to respond to this message. One moment. Just one moment. I know this is probably not what you want to see. Normally I would edit this out. All right, so I'm done that. Let's get back to the joy of coding. Really sorry about that. Answered a question. I would have put that on screen, except that it wasn't something that I think I can share. It was about interviewing and stuff. So, no plan survives breakfast. Things could go wrong. People could jump out at me with questions about things that I can't show you. I might get distracted. Who knows? That's kind of how the joy of coding works. Stuff happens and we deal with it as it comes. It's real software development, and I don't have like the solutions or the plans, or I don't have the code that I'm going to write. If I write any code pre-written, it's all just like development in the raw. So this agenda, I want to point out, is available to you. Check it out. If you are on YouTube, scroll down to the description, or just look at the description below, and you'll find a link to this agenda along with a link to rate this episode. Same goes if you're on Facebook. Check out the pinned comment down below this video, because there should be links there. If you're on Twitch, I'm about to drop the link in the Twitch chat. Let me just do that right now. Twitch chat, here's the agenda. Boom, and here's the link to rate the episode. Whoopsie daisy, didn't mean to click on it. Here's the link. Rate this episode. And if you're on Mozilla, then you need to check out the additional link section below for those things. Okay, so that's that. Also, a quick shout out about the episode guide that I highly encourage you, if you're a fan of this show and if you feel like contributing, to send pull requests to. This episode guide points out all of the stuff that goes on in each episode. It's completely viewer driven. I barely do anything except merge patches and merge pull requests. It's up to about episode 120, so we're a couple behind, but if there's stuff that you want to add, maybe notes about what I did, maybe some graphics, maybe some corrections, anything at all that you think is useful. Like some people put in like the links to things and then some topics of stuff I cover. That's all great. Send it my way. If you're not sure how to do that, there's a guide in the agenda on how to create pull requests and send them my way. I'll happily merge them in. My standards are pretty low. I'll take most things. I'm just hoping to glom together interesting material about the joy of coding that other viewers might find useful. So just send it my way if you have anything. Okay, so quick check, is everything working? I am not dropping frames. I am recording, and you can hear me, so that's good. Next week, hopefully, I'll be streaming on the new Mozilla. I tried doing that today, but I ran into some difficulty, so I'm falling back to my old mechanism. The new Air Mozilla will be slowly rolling out. I'm not entirely sure at what point it's going to replace the old Air Mozilla, but for now I'm using the old mechanism. I'm hoping to completely migrate over to the new one soon. So if there are little bumps along the way for the next couple of episodes, that might explain it. The second thing I wanted to bring up was, so I was gonna, last week I didn't do an episode. Some stuff got in the way, but I wanted to give a quick update about something we were working on the previous episode 126, where sometimes we would get these like spinning, the tab switch spinner would show up permanently in certain situations. And the question, I don't exactly remember where we got to in terms of like investigation in that episode, but I found out what was going wrong. I think I got to the point where I realized that the pres shell was not active, something along those lines. And what ended up being the solution was this. So there's like this disconnect between the dock shell being active and the pres shell being active when we're doing warming. Dock shell being active is what usually happens when you switch to a tab. And setting the dock shell to be active also means the pres shell, which is the presentation shell, becomes active. So we start painting it. When we're warming a tab, we make the presentation shell, the pres shell, active, but we don't make the dock shell active. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because we want to paint and upload layers silently, like quietly in the background, but we don't want the page to know that it's visible. And that's so that like things like visibility events don't fire on the page. Videos that were blocked from running don't suddenly start running. So we don't tell the page that it's visible, but we do make it so that it can be visible, and then we upload its layers. So what was going wrong is sometimes whenever a dock shell navigates, here I wrote this the explanation here. It's possible to render layers for a top-level content process dock shell without that dock shell being active. That's true. That's warming. When we do this, the pres shell for the dock shell becomes active, but the dock shell stays inactive. If a dock shell is inactive but is rendering its layers, it's possible for that dock shell to navigate. That is true, especially if like the parent has told that dock shell to navigate. When this occurs, a new pres shell can be created because we throw away the old presentation and we create a new one. And that normally that pres shell will read its active state off of the dock shell, but that means that the pres shell will become inactive even though the tab is supposed to continue rendering its layers because it's supposed to, like the old pres shell was active, so the new pres shell should be active too. So what we do instead is anytime we navigate, anytime we like set up a new pres shell, what's called in the dock shell to set up a new viewer, that happens every time you navigate, we read the active state off of the pres shell, and if the pres shell is active, even though the dock shell isn't active, then we set that pres shell to be active as well, the new pres shell, and that fixed the bug. So I just want to give a quick update. That was the solution, and that fix has landed. And I filed a number of bugs to get tab warming enabled by default. Tab warming is actually pretty close to being enabled by default. If you look at the bugs here, there's a bug 1423220, enable tab warming by default on nightly. I actually have posted a patch for review, I thought. Maybe I didn't publish it because I have a patch. I think I didn't publish it. So all outgoing, open. Yeah, I've got a patch to enable it by default. I'm going to publish that, which is great. The good news is that there's not much left that I've found in my own testing that will prevent us from turning this on by default on nightly. Now it's going to stay on nightly for a while, but I might be able to do some experiments whenever it uplifts to beta and gather telemetry on what the experience is like on the beta population, where some have warming on by default, some don't. We can take a look at how much time we're saving people and whether or not we're actually saving time. Because if this is actually making the browser slower or is getting in people's way, then we shouldn't ship it. We should turn it off. So we want to try and make informed decisions instead of just turning this thing on and hoping that it helps people. We need to be able to show that it helps people. But one of the things that is preventing this from being enabled by default on nightly is this last bug where I've noticed that whenever a tab is warming and you click on it, if that tab hadn't completed warming, then we'll get these like really short spinners immediately, and we shouldn't have those. So I've got a patch here that fixes that. I've got an explanation of what's going on. If that interests you, if you're curious about that, I highly recommend you read this bug. So enabling the tab warming stuff, and I'm calling all this tab warming stuff out because that's a thing that if you've been watching this stream for a while, maybe for the past like couple of months, since Q4 2017, we've been working on tab warming. So like that's a journey that viewers who've been watching since then and I have been going through together. So I'm hoping that like that's why I'm mentioning it. If you're new, then probably none of this matters, but if you've been watching for a while, you might care that like the thing we've been working on might finally, ship at least to nightly. By default on nightly, that's this bug. Hang on, blocked by this bug. So let me just put that stuff in. And the enabling by default stuff, let me just quickly hook up the notes. And this will update your agenda once it synchronizes, which little spinny goes. So if you reload the agenda, you should have the links now. Okay, so what are we working on today? That's enough for updates. What are we actually going to do? So I wanted to work on, like I've already uploaded the patches for this tab warming stuff. I'm waiting for a review. If some reviews come in, great. Otherwise, we're just kind of blocked. So instead, what I'm thinking of doing is working on some of these other important performance bugs. This one jumped out at me as something that I thought we could try and tackle. So this is consider to process DOM link added event using animation frame callback and set timeout. So what is all of this? What's going on? So Smaug 8 months ago points at this file. This is in Content Link Handler. Content Link Handler is something that pays attention whenever it's initialized, is adding event listeners for something called DOM link added and DOM link changed. And these are events that are they documented somewhere? Let's see. DOM link added. So the DOM link added event is executed when a link has been added to a document. And so not necessarily like an anchor, like not an href, but a link. So like these things up here. So things like style sheets and like I think favicon information. Favicon information, and what else? Yeah, basically favicon information, style sheets, and that sort of thing. Links can have other stuff. Like if you look at the link documentation, what it's supposed to do is apparently specify relationships between the current document and an external resource. That could help define relational framework for navigation. It's usually used to connect to style sheets. And let's see. Is there anything else worth shouting out about it? Not really. But we have this thing, the content link handler, where if we let's take a look at the lifetime of this thing. Where does it get initialized? So a content link handler is initialized here in content.js. Content.js is actually loaded. We have one per, I believe, one loaded per browser tab. Yep. Oh no, the screen's frozen. Am I dropping frames? Oh no. Hi guys, the screen seems frozen apart from the webcam. Oh no. Oh yeah, you're right. What happened? What happened? What's going on? Hold on a second. What's happening here? Thank you for the shout out. Thanks. One sec. Hopefully that hasn't been happening for too long. Oh, a couple minutes. Sorry, folks. That's probably super annoying. Let me try and figure out what's going on here. Retina display. Display. I need to like reset the display. So, whoop. Display capture. How do I? Hello? Display capture. How do I do it? How do I unfreeze you? OBS, you're failing me. How about if I set up a new display capture here? Copy. Paste, duplicate, display capture. Man, how do I? So now you're watching me deal with. Now you're watching me deal with this. Let's see. So here's an example of no plan survives breakfast. Let's see, how do I deal with this? I don't want to shut OBS down, but it looks like OBS is not picking up the change. Like, my screen is not frozen. I am making changes, I can scroll around, my screen's okay. So my hypothesis is that OBS is not being given the pixels that it expects to composite into the final video stream. And I've tried to like reset the display. What if I switch to a different source? So like, what if I do this? So I'm gonna open a black hole temporarily. Woo! That's the other screen. Hey, there we go. There we go. Hopefully that worked. I think it worked. All right, and it's updating. This appears to be working. Okay, sorry folks. Wow, that must have been super annoying. And I don't even remember, what was the last thing you saw? I was like over here, you were looking, I was probably looking at like the bug or something right here. I think I fixed it. Better now? It appears to be working. Yikes. Maybe I need to like, I just recently updated to High Sierra. I wonder if I need to update OBS. So people are chiming in that it looks good. Thanks, folks. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's try and plow ahead. Sorry about that. So we have this content link handler thing that is initialized once per browser tab. We load the frame script once per browser tab, and inside each browser tab, we take a content link handler and we knit it with the browser tab's contents. And what we do in the init function is we add event listeners for DOM link added and DOM link changed. And as I was saying before, DOM links are usually for style sheets. I think most people use, like I think we were looking at the source here before. I'm redoing a lot of stuff that I was doing that you couldn't see. So things like link, here we're pulling down style sheets. That's I think what most people use links for, but you can also use it for like favicons, like this. This is us doing a basic favicon. This is for like retina favicon, all sorts of things. So those are like the primary modern usages of links. And for some reason we fire events whenever like a DOM link added event is fired whenever a link is added to a document. And according to Smog, we process those events synchronously, and that can slow down the first pane of a web page a couple of milliseconds. So like, as we're say we're pulling down the web page and we're seeing the links show up, because most pages have favicons and style sheets, so we're gonna probably run the DOM link added at least event handler. Then we do what do we call? We call on link event, and on link event is doing all this work where we check to see if the link has a rel attribute, and if it doesn't have, if there's no link, there's no document, there's no rel, or there's no ref. So we're really only looking for links that have, the rel attribute. So that specifies a relationship, and then the ref, the anchor, the href. So those have to exist, and if they do exist, we also ignore subframes. But then we do all this stuff where we'll go through the rels for rel string. What's rel string? Of rel split. We split the string up by white space, and then we create this like kind of a map between each string, and then just true for some reason. I'm starting to become familiar with this code for the first time. So you're hearing me. I'm not like explaining this from the perspective of someone who understands it already. I'm reading it for the first time. So we split up the rel string because apparently the rel string could be like have white space in between. Must be a space separated list of link types values. Okay. So there could be multiple links in there. We split it up by white space, and then we just like say, here's an object, set all the keys to be each of those individual strings that have spaces in between them. We set them to true for some reason. And then for each rel value in rels, because, so for each one of them, we loop through and we check to see what kind it is. Rel val and rels. Rel string of rel. Right. So sorry, I was confused. Rels aren't, they're not links, they're type values. They can be alternate, archives, authors. So it's like a bunch of descriptors for, it's been a while since I've dealt with links, but it's like, it can be style sheet space, something else. Like here, shortcut space icon. So this has two strings. And so we're splitting those up by space, and then we're taking a look through each one to see what we've got. And if we find that for each one, if it's feed or alternate, then we check some rules. If the event type is DOM link added, so if a feed was added, then we send a message to the parent saying, hey, there's a feed here. If it's an icon and icon added is already true, which I guess could happen later on, or if we're not allowing favicons, then we bail out. Otherwise, we get the icon URI, because apparently that's something we have to do. We get the link, the owner document, we create a new URI object. And then if we couldn't create one, we bail out. And then we are creating some telemetry probes for measuring the sizes, attribute usage, and available dimensions of the favicon, I guess. Link icon sizes, attribute usage, link icon size, attribute dimension. We go through the link sizes length, and we say like, okay, well, I guess sizes is something that can be defined on the link. Sizes. Yeah, so you can set a sizes attribute on icon types. If there's a size attribute, then we look at it. Otherwise, if it might be any, or it might be like numbers, like some number bot X some other number. So we're doing like some regex stuff here. And then we're putting that information in the histogram for telemetry's sake. And then ultimately this is all for telemetry. And then what we're doing is we're sending a message saying, hey, there's an icon here. And we send that to the parent. And then we say icon added is true. So only the first one will be paid attention to. Subsequent icons that we see are just going to break early up here. Okay. Finally, if I guess some pages can provide search links. That wouldn't surprise me if we go to let's go to DuckDuckGo. Is there like rel equals search? Search? No, I don't see one. What about, does Google offer rel equals search? No. Type search. Indicates that the hyperlink references a document whose interface is specially designed for searching in this document or site and its resources. Okay. Okay. If we haven't already added a search and DOM link is added, then we check to see whether the type is of type open search description, some kind of MIME type here. And if so, then we send another async message, and then we're done. Those are the three things. These are the things that we handle: searches, icons, and feeds. And that's what we're paying attention to. And so what Smog is saying is we do all that synchronously as these nodes are parsed. As we're constructing the document, we're parsing the HTML, we'll see oh, here's a link, create the node inside the DOM structure in memory, and oh, that was a link, so let's fire this event in JavaScript to deal with it. And that's firing synchronously. And that's actually happening before the first paint. So the question he's asking is, can we do this work asynchronously using animation frame callbacks or a set timeout? And I think we can. I think we can probably get away with it. We might actually even be able to do something a bit better. So what I'm wondering is if we can, let me take some notes here. So Smog's original idea is to, what is it? Is to use request animation frame and set timeout to process DOM link added and DOM link changed events. What I'm wondering is if it's possible for us to do the following instead. Can we, capture DOM link added and DOM link changed events and use some debouncer to queue up an idle callback to fire when we've got an appropriate time slice. Once an appropriate time slice is found, process, basically flush the DOM link, flush the queued stuff, process, So queue up the idle callbacks when we've got an appropriate time slice, and hold references to the links that were added or changed. Once an appropriate time slice is found, flush the queue of added, changed links and analyze them to determine what, if any, messages to send to the parent. Break this work up so that if there are many link nodes, then we bail out if we exceed our idle callback time limit, and then come back and flush, and then come back and flush the next time we have an idle slice. So here's the idea. What if, when we're constructing this thing, we see these like link nodes and we just make note of them? Like, oh, okay, here's a link node. Got it. I'll hold a reference to that for a while. And I also queue up an idle callback to process that link node. So it's like I put it in like a holding area and say, okay, I'll get to you whenever I have a second. But I'm going to prioritize getting this page constructed and painted. Then that could happen any number of times. Like more link nodes show up and we're like, oh, okay, we'll put that in the bucket as well. But then debounce. So cancel the old idle callback and create a new one each time. So it's like you make sure that, does that make sense? Seems to make sense. Yeah, debounce. So you like cancel the last idle callback and create a new one. So you kind of like hopefully move the goalpost. I think that's how the idle callback stuff would work. If you were like to cancel one and then create a new one, I wonder if it would choose a different time slot. At any rate, it's probably worth doing. And then once finally we have an idle callback window, check to see whether or not the time limit that we have, because we get past a time budget, see if it's large enough to process the links, and then process as many as we can. So I guess we shouldn't necessarily check to see how many we can, like how much time we've got. Just like look at the budget and then process a link if the budget's greater than 0, and then keep checking the budget. And if the budget ever is like you're done, you're out of time, stop processing links and queue up another idle callback so that we can come back. Meanwhile, throughout all this, we might add more things into the bucket, and then we'll flush them out when idle callbacks come. And that's what I'm thinking of doing. It seems like a solid strategy. So first of all, do we have any tests for DOM link added? Browser. So there's a Favicon browser icon discovery. There's this test here where we'll go to some page, and then we will wait for the favicon to show up. And we'll also, what we'll do is we'll like run content script to alter the page to change the favicon, and then wait for those messages. So this should still continue to work with my scheme. I don't think we have any front-end code that assumes that these DOM link added events will be fired right away. But just to double check, favicon. This test the link element won't fire DOM link change DOM link add unless it is added to the DOM. There's debounce logic in content link handler. Is there? Is there debounce logic? Is there already debounce logic? I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true, Nan. Did this change recently? Let's take a look at when Nan, so this is in September. Debounce. My understanding has increasing the debounce. What are you pointing at? Let's test debounce. This was 4 months ago, so not that long ago. Let's take a look at when this patch landed, what the state of the tree was like. So here, this is when this landed 4 months ago. Let's take a look at what content link handler looked like. So that's under browser modules, content link handler. Browser, pop up the font, modules, content link handler. DOM link added. So that's on link event. I don't think there's debounce logic in here. Oh, load timer cancel. Unload. Favicon loads. What is this? Favicon loads. Handle favicon link. Timeout call function for loading a favicon. So there is some debouncing here. Callback. How does it work? Favicon timeout callback. Favicon parsing timeout is a timeout, and that occurs here. Okay, so that's not the way things are these days. Timeout, and so this file has changed in the meantime. And why? Why? Back in. So it must have changed sometime. Maybe here. It's not used. This import diff. No. Here. Content link handler. That's not it. Here. I don't think this would be it. So when did no? These are linting things. What? So when did this change? So from here, we have this like favicon parsing timeout. What happened? Ah, it's still there. I just missed it. Or maybe it was, maybe I'm screwing up because it was added after. Yeah, okay. I've been looking at the code that Smog linked to, which was from when? 7cc 377. What date is this showing this? That was on June of 2017. So content link handler is actually different these days. So let's take a look at it these days. I would imagine it's probably similar. So this is interesting. We also have to deal with the unload event, where we will stop all of the timers, or stop, like we will flush the queue and like tear it all down, which is important. Okay. don't think too much else changes though. And so who's worked on this in the meantime? Chris Maglione wrote some big changes. Whoopsie daisy. Ed Lee. So Marco and Mardak worked on this. So maybe I could ask one of them for review on whenever I've got a patch here. So I'm gonna make sure that they're both. So Marco's already on this. I'm gonna add Mardak. I'm going to take a crack at this. I'm going to see if I can debounce all reactions to DOM link added and DOM link changed, and use idle callbacks. Okay, so let's give it a shot. Let's see what we've got. So the good news is we've got some tests that we can mess around with to check our progress and make sure we're not breaking things that we have tests for, naturally. So let's write maybe down some of these tests. Tests that are relevant. DOM link added. So tests include this one. This one looks like this one, and that's not saying there aren't others that I'm missing here, but these are good sort of smoke tests to run. Make sure we don't blow up the world. What about this? I don't think I need to run this one. So just these browser ones. And then DOM link changed. I already have that one listed. So tests to run. Okay. My nose is really itchy. So let's get to writing. Yay, finally get to write some code. Content link handler. Well, I want to sort of do a better job of understanding this favicon stuff. So because it looks like a bunch of work already went in to deal with favicon loading. So handle favicon link happens here if we determine that what we're seeing is a favicon, and then what happens is we get the link for it, we extract the size of it, and we construct this icon info thing based on all that information. And if we've already heard of this favicon loads thing, if the favicon loads that are underway already have recorded this page URL, then we, oh, I see. So if we've never seen this page before, then we set up a timeout to fire that amount of time to call favicon timeout callback, and then we have this object, this load object that has our reference to our timer along with these icon infos that we've constructed, and we map the URL to the icon info, and then if subsequent favicons show up, then we will push those into the into that same array, that icon infos array that's created here. and then we re-init the timer. So that's your debouncing right there. And then eventually we call this timeout callback. We do some calculations on which icon we actually prefer of all of them. And then we call set icon. And then we clear out the page URL. And set icon is the message that we end up sending. And there's some other utilities in here as well. Okay. And then there's this like set timeout wrapper. Okay. I think I get it. And every time we init, we create a new map. So we're already kind of doing what we want with favicon loads. I just want to generalize the technique so that we do it for all DOM links. Parsing timeout after 100 milliseconds. All right. And whenever they did this work, it looks, I saw a brief, where did I see? Oh, there's more tests in here. Browser preferred icons. Do I already have that? No. Browser preferred icons, and then the content link handler patch. That wasn't it. That wasn't the change. Icons, no. Use rich icons for tabs. Favicon change in browser discovery. This one, that's a new test. Browser discovery. Favicon change. That sounds useful. And browser UI tour available targets. What? Okay, that's not super relevant. Here is maybe where it happened. Collect rich icons. Then browser tab icon after background tab crash. That sounds useful. Browser label and icon. These are all great tests to know about. Browser attributes. Browser get recently closed tabs. Subframe favicons not used. Change not in document. We already have that one. Browser discovery we already have. Okay, great. And then content link handler. That's when he added all this stuff. And so this is the bug I want to quickly read to see quickly what they were thinking of. With the changes that Mac is working on, we'll be able to store rich favicons come with tags like Apple Icon Touch. It's currently possible to store icons of these size. They were taken based on favicons, as you see in wild. You know, also store SVGs that have no size. When you serve ID icons, you know, should be have. The root domain icon for each page. Feature doesn't seem to know that unlike the default favicon load strategy, last one wins. The rich icon favors the best one. They'll use the icons with them. First, the default favicon strategy is to load the first one, not the last one. Indeed, at the first link icon, we set icon added tree. The next one we bail out. The problem is that you've copied strategy, including rich icon added, in the same way after the rich icon link, you bail out. So some discussion on which icon to choose. Agreed that the current robot is getting Talos happy with this patch. The Talos test is still undergoing. Meanwhile, Ursula and I are refactoring the patches, both for favicon metadata. It is in a batching fashion, so we can simplify the code and minimize performance impact. So Talos was complaining about one of the earlier patches. And what was the earlier patch doing? Let's look at one of the earlier patches. Let's look at like number 2. Or what was the original? It was attachment 890. And Marco. It was basically the first one. I want to look at the first revision. Is this working? This is not working. This is working. Okay. Diff 1. And let's look at content link handler. Okay, yeah, the original didn't have the debouncing, and that's what they added once they had the Talos issue. Timeout delay can be re-extended upon the same resolution. I resets delay even not providing a larger width. The only thing we care about for the security implications is that favicon loads don't continue indefinitely. The code is built to track single load per page. It could be changed to handle multiple loads per page. Indeed, we should probably. The important thing is that all the loads are canceled when the page is closed. Don't want a server to be able to send a favicon and keep the request open indefinitely and track the browser. That's important, yeah. All those are canceled when the page is closed. And that occurs here, I guess. Cancel. Content link handler. Icon selection. Man. In a timer bouncing manner. Okay, skip some tests, fix some failing tests. Okay. So this is important. I'm going to keep this around in a link around in my notes. Bug where favicon debouncing was implemented. Always a good idea to do your research before writing anything. And now that I think I have a sense of how things are going. Like, I haven't read this whole bug. There's a lot in here. There's a lot of review feedback that goes on. I should probably familiarize myself with it. But instead, what I'm going to do is just go in. Let's see what we can do. So it feels like on link event is where we will probably want to add something to our queue. We should probably have some kind of queue. We have a queue of link events. Event queue. And so what we'll do is we will this dot on link added. I'm gonna have us. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. Instead of having these like little arrow functions, I'm gonna say this. Add this as the DOM link added and DOM link changed event handler. And we'll have a handle event here. Switch event.type case DOM link added. This dot on link event Chrome global. What is Chrome global here? Oh, it's what we're past. Oh, that's why. DOM link added. It's knitted with the Chrome global. Right. We're inside some kind of like process global object here. But the Chrome global will be the eventual of like what the listener is, would be the original target. So I don't need to pass the Chrome global. Or like I can get the Chrome global. I think like event original target. The original target of the event for any retargetings. Example. The DOM element on the left-hand side of the call that triggered the event. Current target. Oh, no, we probably want current target. Current target. Yeah. The element to which the event handler has been attached. Right, current target. Let Chrome global equal event current target. And then we'll do this. Chrome global this. And then Favicon loads is this thing that we hold in this closure kind of thing. Maybe I'll do this. Favicon loads new map. Oh, because we want one per global. Got it. That's why you're doing it that way. Oh, shoot. Okay, so because we can have several content link handlers in a process, and one is initialized per Chrome global, we're going to have a different event queue and a different favicon loads per global. So what we might want then is like a weak map. So global map, weak map, and then this dot global map set Chrome global, and then we're going to map that to events, event queue, and favicon loads, new map. And then we're going to say let global state. And what is this? The event queue, and that's like global data, or global state equal this dot global map dot get Chrome global. If not global state, then we're done. And then what we do is we'll call Chrome global and then global state dot favicon loads, and we'll break here. Case DOM link changed, then it is based on link event. I'm basically re-implementing or refactoring a little bit. Global state dot favicon loads. We'll break here, and then we can get rid of this, and then on unload, global state. If there's no global state, then when would there not be any global state? If we haven't initted somehow, and we wouldn't handle the event if we haven't initted. So I think I'm going to get rid of that check. And the reason for that is because I don't want to accidentally have a case where we might escape before dealing with the unload event handler. Case unload. Global state dot favicon loads. Delete page URL. Okay. And then we can say add event listener, unload this, and we can get rid of that. So this should be functionally equivalent, I think. And it's complaining about that, and we're done. Okay, so this should be functionally equivalent. It's just a minor refactor, nothing too crazy. Let's run some tests just to make sure. Ooh, I've got a question from the audience. Favorite color, asks ZAH96. These days, red. I like the color red. But I'm easy. Like I can be argued all over the place. Someone will show me like blue, and I'll go, yeah, that is a good color. So I guess here's the other thing. These two are very similar. I can just be like, fall through. So let's find some tests to run. I had a list here. Let's do favicon change. Let's see what happens when we run that. Haven't played any sounds in a while. Let's do that. If this test, we'll do it based on whether or not this test is judged worthy, or rather, the code is judged worthy of passing. That's some Law and Order reference there. So let's see how it goes. Rutrow. I suspect the test should probably have completed by now. So I'm going to say we've screwed up. Good to know. Glad we ran that test. Let's find out what went wrong. So what does this do? Browser favicon change. Adds a tab, waits for it to load, expects a favicon, and then we're observing things changing. Please change favicon. What? All right. File favicon change is probably going to respond to that event. Yeah, and then it sets the attribute to a different icon. So somewhere we're falling through in here. So let's find out what we're waiting for. So we'll run the test with the JS debugger. So we've hit our breakpoint. That's good. So we're going to step through, add our tab, and load a URI, and we're going to create all of these things. And then I'm gonna add breakpoints here to see where we get to. So we're observing. We await tab loaded. We're awaiting. So tab loaded isn't showing up. Browser loaded. Is that correct? The tab loaded didn't show up. Like, let's run the test again. Oh, no, we get to tab loaded. We're waiting for the have changed promise. Right, we never get past the have changed promise. So, and I don't even see a favicon here. So what's going wrong is the question. Content link handler says, cannot use the given object as a weak map key. 275. That's our problem. 275. You can't use the Chrome global as a weak map key. Shoot. That makes sense, I think. It has to be like a DOM element. Weak map. Somewhere in content, child message senders, content scope, weak reference, child message senders. Is that DOM node? No. I need something that runs in content blocked windows. The DOM window. That's interesting. Other things that run inside content. Form details. No. Oh well, maybe. Forms details dot set the root elements. That's a DOM node. And what else? Content search, suggestion map. Oh, that's running inside the parent process. That's no good. Let's see here. DevTools, DevTools. Lots of DevTools stuff. DevTools. Push. That's parent mode. That's child. Timings. Doc. Doc is context owner document. In this case, we have a global. And what should I pull from it? Like, certainly there's something that runs like content, tab content. Is there? Yeah, the blocked windows are dot set win. That's the only thing. And content process or browser child like this dot content doc shell weak map. Content dot document. Maybe I just do content dot document. And then where content link handler is initted here, maybe we should look at content meta handler. What does it do? Content meta handler does similar things. And when it inits, Chrome global. Init about blocked site listener. Init Chrome global. Just like looking for examples of how linkage works, but I think what I'll do is I'll just set the set Chrome global which is content document. I think that'll work. So let's try that again. This time without the JS debugger. Still nothing. Let's take a look. Oh, got undefined. Shoot, so what? This is silly. Global dot content dot document? That's probably it. Maybe it should be just dot content. That. Just doing a little guessing here. Just guessing. Drum roll, please. Is the test gonna pass? That's the question. Yeah. All right. That's the idea. I can use the content, the Chrome Global content as the key here, as the weak map between the event queue and the favicon loads. When we unload, we have to cancel all of the timers. But I can probably get away with not, like, so this works by using set timeout. And set timeout is actually wrapping what's called the NSI timer implementation. What's interesting about this is that NSI timer is a timer that works kind of like set timeout, but it returns a reference. And if you don't hold a reference to that reference, it can get GC'd. And then when the timer fires, it's possible for you to crash because you weren't holding a reference to the timer, and the timer got GC'd, which is really bad. So I want to avoid using NSI timer if I can. But what I feel like is we've got like a nice sort of refactor here that we can start with. I think that's a nice refactor. And now let's move on to the next step, which is to start adding things to the event queue. This dot queue event. And then queue event. Queue event, Chrome Global. Global state dot event queue event. Maybe just global state and then the event. Because then I can do global state dot event queue dot push event, and then idle timer ID is 0 or null. And then how would I like request idle callback? I want to like do content dot global content. Global state. I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna not do either of these things for now. I'm gonna do them in here for unloading, but I suspect I don't want to do them later on. This is just temporary. I'm gonna duplicate myself a little bit here. I'm just gonna take the event, and then I'm gonna get the global state. Event, if not global state, then we should bail out. And then we're gonna push the event queue. If global state dot idle timer ID, then we're gonna cancel idle callback. Cancel idle callback. Chrome global dot content cancel idle callback. Content Chrome global dot content. I can get rid of some of this duplication. Content dot cancel idle callback. global state idle timer ID. And then global state idle timer ID equals null. And then down here, we're going to say global state idle timer ID equals content.request idle callback. And we're going to say run this dot flush global state. Up here, when we unload, let content equals chrome global dot content. The global state. What we're going to do as well is we're going to if global state dot idle timer ID content dot cancel idle callback global state dot idle timer ID state dot idle timer ID equals null. I can probably factor that out into a common function. This dot cancel idle callback global state or wait, man, yeah, this dot cancel idle callback chrome global cancel idle callback chrome global. We'll get the content. We'll get the global state. And then I can get rid of that. And then I can also get rid of this. This dot cancel idle callback. If not global state, I could do this if global state and global state idle timer ID cancel idle callback chrome global, and then we get the state again. We'll push the event, and then maybe it makes more sense to put the idle callback stuff here. Push the event, and we'll request the idle callback to flush global state. Okay. Flush. Idle deadline. That's what we get whenever we're in a request idle callback, is we have an idle deadline. Which has a time remaining. While idle deadline dot time remaining. flush, global state, idle, deadline. I guess I can get rid of those. State, idle, deadline, while idle, deadline, time remaining. And then down here, if global state dot events dot length is greater than 0, then we need to enqueue another timer. Request idle callback. This dot, is it request idle callback or this dot cancel flush, cancel deferred flush, set deferred flush, Chrome global. Cancel deferred flush is what I'll call that instead. And set deferred flush. Set deferred flush. I'll take a Chrome global. That's basically this. Checking if there's no global state. I don't know if that's necessary or not. Chrome global, let content equals Chrome global dot content. Timer ID. If global state idle timer ID. Maybe this is where we should do this dot cancel deferred flush Chrome global. Queue, push, event, set deferred flush. Get the state. If there's one already existing, we'll clear it. And then we'll set the idle timer ID. This is not what one would call functional programming, because we have all this state lying around. But I think that's okay. And then finally, when we flush, we're going to get the state and idle deadline, while idle dead, global state and idle deadline. If global state, then we need to set a new deferred flush with the Chrome global. So maybe that's what we need to pass instead. This dot flush Chrome global. Content. Or maybe we should be passing around content more, because we seem to be like turning everything into contents anyways. I worry about like keeping it around though, because that's how you leak. While idle deadline, time remaining. Process the events, and if there are more events afterwards, then we're gonna set deferred flush Oh, wait a second. Yeah, Chrome Global. This dot on link event while idle deadline time remaining. Let next and global state dot, or like, let's see here. Let event queue equal global state dot event queue while idle deadlining and event queue. Is that what's called? Events or event queue? Event queue and event queue. So it's not events. It's event queue. Event queue length is greater than 1. And event queue dot length greater than 0. Let event equal event queue dot shift. We'll take the next one. And then we're going to deal with it. This dot on link event Chrome Global, and then favicon loads, which is global state dot favicon loads. And then we're done flushing. What are you complaining about here? Global state's not defined. Right. Chrome Global. Cancel deferred flush with the Chrome Global. Set deferred flush with Chrome Global. And then think that'll do. And then so cancel deferred flush, and then the last thing we should do is like this dot global map dot delete content. All right, let's see if that runs and passes some tests. Let's just see. And then I think I'm going to stop there. We've written a bunch of code. I need to document it, but it's starting to take shape. Let's see what this is like when we run this. Passes. All right, that's good. On link event, set deferred flush, cancel deferred flush. I'm actually curious already what this is going to do to our Talos tests, Talos results. This could already have some wins because we're now deferring a bunch of this stuff. Queue an event. Alright. So I'm going to actually commit this right now. Bug such and such. Work in progress. Defer DOM link added and DOM link changed. reactions until an idle callback. Now I'm going to actually push this to try just as it is and see what this does. I'm just curious what this is going to do to some Talos tests, our performance tests. Is this going to impact things like page load time? Because I suspect it might. Might shave a couple percentage off, which would be nice. So pushing that up to review. Do 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 do. Okay, so let's just quickly take a look at this patch. I don't think I can publish it because there are no reviewers. Or no, I can publish it without reviewers. That's okay. I'll publish it. And I'm going to try to build it. I'm going to use an artifact build for speed. Both, I guess, just to check for leaks, but I'm going to do this, this, this. I'm going to run all Moki tests. And I'm also going to run Talos tests. Yeah, retriggers. So I'm actually gonna not do it with the interface, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this twice. I'm going to get a baseline. I'm gonna rebase this on top of central. Rebase the current patch on top of central. And then I'm going to push this to try. And then I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to do another push, but just central as my baseline. I'm going to use opt only. I'm not going to run any of the Moki tests. I'm just going to run the Talos tests. Okay, and then I'm going to push to try, update central. Push to try, baseline. So this is our push. So push with work in progress patch, and then baseline push. And then I think I'm going to call this episode closed once that's done. I'm not, so I think there's some maybe refactoring that needs to happen here. I'm not super jazzed with how, well, I can't really see it now because I haven't got it checked out, but like, if you look at the diff of what I've written, oh no, don't run the debugger. So hopefully that doesn't screw things up. It shouldn't. I think we'll be okay. But I'm I'm not super jazzed about having to pass the Chrome global around all the time. Maybe that's okay. Because I'm repeating myself a lot. Like the first thing I do once I get the Chrome global is get the global state. And the reason I do that is because like I need not only the key, but I need the key and the value is the problem. And so the Chrome global is the key, and I'm like calling functions with that key, and then they're all repeating the same thing, which is like, okay, well now get the value. So maybe there is a better way of doing that. So thing to keep in mind. Baseline push, and real quick before I forget, I'm going to get rid of that debugger statement, and then call it a day. Call it a day.
It's me, Mario.
Mercurial is figuring itself out. All right, do that, and then amend, because I don't need to change the commit message. And that's it. Hey, we wrote some code. Thank you so much for watching episode 127 of The Joy of Coding. We didn't get to this other part, but I thought this was pretty neat. This DOM link added stuff. Got a work in progress patch put together. And let's see what automation thinks of it before cleaning it up a little. So, hey, did you enjoy this episode? Let me know. Maybe you didn't like this episode. Let me know. There's a link in the agenda and in all of the places where you can get the agenda to rate this episode. Please consider rating the episode and letting me know what you thought. I read everything that comes in. I'm going to drop the link to rate the episode again into the Twitch chat. I want to hear what you think. So send thoughts, your suggestions, whatnot my way. I read everything that comes in. Yeah, do let me know, because I take your feedback seriously. And I think that's it. Thanks so much for watching episode 127. I should be back next week with episode 128, hopefully using the new Mozilla system for repeating. I guess that's like a technical detail that you don't super need to know about, but that's what is hopefully going to be happening under the hood. And yeah, I'll be with you next week with episode 128. Pointing. That's rude. Sorry. So yeah, have yourselves a great week, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.